Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project, where our vision is to inspire all leaders to challenge the status quo. And we aim to empower modern leaders through knowledge and emotional intelligence to create meaningful impact. In today's episode, we're greatly honoured to be joined by Matt Lohmeyer of Negotiation Partners. One of the many skill sets that a great leader needs to have in their toolkit is the ability to negotiate. And Matt has joined us today to share with us many great lessons that he has built over time through his experience as a negotiation leader and a negotiation coach. Sit back. We hope you enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Leadership Project. We're really glad that you've joined us today for what's going to be a wonderful session where I'm joined by a very dear friend of mine, Matt Lohmeyer, and we're going to talk about the negotiation skills that all leaders should have in their kit bag. Now, I've known Matt for quite a long time, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But first of all, Matt, please say hello to our audience and generally introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Mick, for inviting me. I look forward to sharing some stories and some of the insights on negotiation with you. You'll find that I'm quite passionate about the subject, and you may need to rein me in so we can stay with the time allowed.
Well, that I know for certain, and from firsthand experience, your passion for this subject. And I alluded to the fact that we've known each other for quite some time. So it is 13 years. I was thinking about it the other day, and you may be surprised to know, if you remember all of them, I certainly do, that I've been through your programs no less than 5 times. I worked it out the other day. So 2 of those times were, let's call it educational, where I did a 4-day course with you on negotiation skills with no particular negotiation in mind for preparation.
Yep.
One of those programs was when I was on a executive leadership program with my former company, and you led the negotiation chapter or module within that program, which was absolutely wonderful and life-changing. And then there were 3 examples where I engaged your services to help me and my team to prepare specifically for some complex negotiations that we're going into. And I've got to tell the audience, and I know you already know this, that we won all 3 of those contracts, and they were multi-million-dollar contracts. So my track record with you, I have to say, is 5 for 5. So how do you feel about that when I tell you that?
That's I'd forgotten about all 5, actually. I remember 3. It must have been a bit of a blur, but that's why I love doing what I do, and why all of my team are motivated, because in the end, it's all about making sure that our clients are successful. In the end, that's the only thing that really matters. And so it's been a delight to have been working with you and the team on those deals, and great that they've delivered.
Thank you, Matt. And I'm always going to be grateful. The lessons that I've learned and I've kept in my kit bag, which is what we're going to talk about today, I've had those there for 13 years and I can still recite the majority of them. Don't test me today, but
I was just going to say, it's one of the delights whenever I speak with somebody who's done the program 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and you can hear it in their words. The language is still there. They still remember. I mean, how many courses can we think of that, we still remember the skills, and we still remember the language, and we still remember and apply those skills. It's I love it. Just love it.
I was not exaggerating when I said life-changing, and anyone that does your programs, and we should put that into a little bit of context. We'll talk about this towards the end of the program, but we'll mention right now that you are the head of Negotiation Partners. You've formed that business and you help individuals learn negotiation skills, but you also help organizations prepare for complex negotiations, as we discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things that I fell to almost by accident because I was, working in a capacity negotiating deals. I was in pharmaceutical licensing. That was my business, working out of London in the UK, traveling the world, doing licensing deals with pharma companies, and came to Australia many, many years ago. And I had done many negotiation skills programs over time. But there was one that I still remember. This was June 2006, which changed the course of my career because it wasn't like any of the other programs that I'd ever attended. It was run by two professional negotiators, by people who actually did this for a living. And I remember going in thinking, pick up one or two things, a bit of time out of the office. And I ended up coming away from that program thinking, you've got no idea what you're doing. And that was the catalyst for me to resign my job and train as a professional negotiator, because I'd seen that that's what I wanted to do.
Wow.
That's now 14 years ago.
Wow. Okay. So the world is better for that because you are a true professional at your craft and you fell into something that you clearly love and you put so much energy into, and all of your students that you've had since and all the companies that you've helped since are richer for the fact that chance encounter happened and that self-realization happened, that clearly you loved it. But you also, what I picked up there is you recognize that maybe your trade wasn't where it needed to be at that point when you saw those two master negotiators, but you had the self-awareness to do something about it.
Well, I guess that's part of my realizations, and that, negotiation, I'd always thought of negotiation as a business skill. It's not a business skill. The ability to negotiate is a life skill. And unfortunately, it's something that you need to learn like any skill. It's not anything that anybody has from birth. Quite the contrary. So it's something that you need to learn, and it's such a powerful skill once you know how it works. And yeah, I look forward to sharing some of those with your audience.
That's going to be a really great scene setter for the conversation that we are going to have today. So thank you for that, Matt. I want to wind the clock back a little bit further. Before you fell into it in that way, what were you doing before you decided to make that pivot?
I thought I had the best job in the world. Back then I was working I was in technology commercialization. Really, that's working with the brightest minds in a research organization, the inventors, scientists who discover new drugs, new diagnostics, new technologies, cutting edge science, and then making sure that is, patented, protected, and then passed on to corporations, companies, other research institutes who can turn those great ideas into products that can make a difference in the marketplace. My specialist area was pharmaceuticals, life sciences. So, there are a number of cancer drugs, for example, that are now in the market that I didn't invent, but, I had a hand in that journey to make sure that they didn't just die, but they got passed into the right hands. And now there are, some drugs in the market that actually save people's lives. That was terrific. Lots of negotiating, of course, lots of negotiating about potential, because you never know what these things are going to be, how effective they're going to be, whether they're going to work at all. So, you have a lot of challenges in trying to fix a price and payments and everything else for something that you don't know whether it's going to be useful at all. So interesting negotiations. That's what I was doing before I changed careers.
There's something that I picked up there in what you're saying, and I think it's really important for the audience to think about. My view is that any life-changing or world-changing invention or innovation is always a result of a collection of people working together to make that happen. So whilst your name might not be the inventor's name on the patent, the role that you played still facilitated to make that happen, to make it come to market, and then to realize a vision that the inventor probably had to actually make a difference in the world. So it's really important to take due credit for all people that are in those roles where you're supporting and you're part of a broader team that is developing something that does change the world. So please do take that.
And it's really satisfying to do that. And to, I look back with great pride at some of those deals that that I had a hand in. I now work with, I volunteer some time to mentor some entrepreneurs and startups coming out of universities. There's a little bit of self-interest in it for me because I love the cutting edge of science. So it's a great way to stay in touch with that and my past life, which I don't see a lot of these days when, you're negotiating large deals, which usually are, large procurement deals or dispute resolutions and buying equipment and planes and all sorts of things. So I get my technology fix working with those bright young minds and helping them out and sharing as much as they can to get them on their journey.
There's an African proverb that we often relate to here on the Leadership Project, which is if you want to go fast, you go alone. And if you want to go far, you go together. And what you're talking about is really the embodiment of that. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, I love that.
Tell us your background before that then, Matt. So it was a science background or as a business background?
Yes, I'm a scientist by training. I did my PhD and postdoc in cancer drug development, actually at the bench.
Okay.
But then I defected to the dark side and started working in the commercial side of science. Essentially, that translation between that boundary between research and commerce. And that's a really interesting space because you need people there. Really, it's like any boundary. You need people who speak both languages, who can speak science, but who can also speak commerce, who understand the challenges of the science environment, but who also understand the commercial environment. And as negotiators, as leaders, not just negotiators, as leaders, you're often at those boundaries where you need to manage the friction on one side, the development team or the delivery team that's charged with performing the task. And on the other hand, you've got the client who's got certain expectations. You're always on that point of friction and being able to speak both languages, having the ability to listen and to really understand what's going on both sides so you can manage that interface is really important. And so, the ability to negotiate, those skills will come in very handy.
We are the Leadership Project, so let's talk about your own leadership journey. So was there a particular moment in your career that you became self-aware that you had a certain leadership skill or a certain affinity towards leadership? Any pivotal moment there for you?
Personally, for myself, I haven't really thought of my journey as a leadership journey per se. And of course, in my role, I lead negotiation teams. I work with a small group of colleagues. And, technically I'm the boss, but anybody who calls me the boss will get fired. Not that I can fire them because they're all my friends. So it's leadership, but in a very non-hierarchical and in a very, very robust, but very an unstructured way. I'm not a great fan of hierarchy in terms of getting things done. And leading by example is going to be the most important piece, although my colleagues will be the first to say that sometimes I don't set the most effective examples, but there you go. We all have our crosses to bear.
Winding back then, think about, this is probably more than 16 years ago, although you can come across different leaders in all walks of life, even today when you're running your own business, you're still going to come across leaders. Can you think of any specific leaders that really inspired you or really caught your attention and went, wow, that's an inspiring leader, really encourages me and inspires me to do things? Can you think of any examples and what appealed to you about their leadership style?
For me personally, leadership is about a number of different things about the courage to do things that need to be done, even if they may be unpopular or, politically challenging. I think what we can see today is, very clear examples looking at the politics around the globe, where we have very different kinds of leadership. Personally, and maybe I should have declared this at the beginning of the podcast, I'm German by birth and upbringing. So I do have a certain degree of respect, or great degree of respect, for Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, and the way that she has led the country through very difficult and challenging times. Funnily enough, she's a scientist.
Oh, right. Okay.
By background. So very driven by rational and coherent thought and structured thinking, rather than your traditional politician, which is all about schmoozing and working the numbers and all of those sort of things. And maybe there lies a little bit of a secret to her success compared to some of her peers. But don't want to turn this political. I'm a scientist by training, so for me, bringing a team along, inspiring them, and giving them the opportunity to succeed and to forge their own path, if you like. That's something that I've always enjoyed in the leaders that I've had the privilege of working with. Enough rope for you to learn, not enough rope to fall off. Or when you do fall off, to not hit the ground. Yeah. Something that has worked for me, and leaders who lead by example, but also who encourage their teams, those who they lead, to develop their skills in an active kind of way, not just, here's the job and, learn on the job, but actually give people the opportunity to build their skills through interacting with others. Some of the greatest learning opportunities I've had is through having worked on special projects with teams that I had no direct exposure to. And you're saying, well, this is a completely different, how does that work over here? This is not how we do this. Let me understand, why are you doing this like this? And suddenly you get this whole different perspective, which I guess makes it easier for you to realize that maybe the world looks a little different from the other side of the table, and to try and understand why that world might look a little different, because that's having the ability to put yourself in the other person's shoes is an important skill, I think, especially when you're negotiating. Yeah,
you're picking up a number of major attributes and qualities there, Matt, and one of them is giving people opportunity to learn, and giving them opportunity to learn by doing and learn by experience, because people will always remember something much more deeply if they've actually been hands-on, they've experienced it, they've experienced the emotions of it, as well as the tactile element of whatever it is that that skill entails. And the second one is empathy. You nailed it there, and I can imagine, and we'll talk about negotiation in more detail in a moment, empathy is a fundamental skill in the negotiation table.
Yeah.
You brought up about Angela Merkel. I want to share a story on that. And she recently resigned, or retired, I think 18 years or something like that. One of the longest serving chancellors, I think, ever. And one of the things that I always remember about her, and about how human she is, when she visited Brisbane in Australia for, I think it was the G20 conference, and all of the other presidents and prime ministers, etc., have all got their entourages and their details, particularly the President of the United States. You can imagine, city goes down in lockdown and there's Secret Service everywhere. And Angela Merkel, when she was in Brisbane the day before the summit, she took her bodyguards and walked down to the Caxton Hotel and had a beer with the locals and was talking to them, what's life like in Australia, and tell me about Brisbane and what's your favourite this and what's your favourite that. She was a very personable person. And I even understand back in Germany that she would often be spotted doing her own grocery shopping, and because that was her preference. And she came across as very human to me, and probably ahead of her time, because leaders 18 years ago certainly didn't do that. So ahead of her time and set a standard for others. Do you remember that when she came to Brisbane? Or
no, I don't recall that particular story. But it sounds just like her.
Yeah.
That human touch, I guess, and that accessibility, I guess, is something that certainly makes her stand out, and is, I think, one of the great qualities of a leader. So you're not up there. I always feel that anybody can have a chat. If you've got an issue, let's raise it. And by the way, nobody's perfect, including including those who lead. And having that humility is important.
And coming back to the empathy part, you see so many. Well, I'm going to turn to business now as well. You see so many chairmen or executives or chair people, I should say, or executives making decisions that seem so far removed from the shop floor in the business sense. And politicians, same thing. They're legislating every day, but how far removed are they from the average citizen's life? And I think the Chancellor Merkel did that. It meant that she was still in touch even after all those years. Okay, let's switch to the negotiation topic then, and the theme that we set ourselves for today, and we'll see where the conversation takes us. What do you believe are the negotiation skills that all leaders should have in their kit bag, or whatever you want to call it?
I think one of the most important is to really understand what it is they're doing when they are negotiating. And that might seem like such an odd comment to make. Ever since we've started running the program, our negotiation skills program, before each program, we ask all the participants to give us a little bit of a definition of what it means to them to be negotiating. And looking through the definitions that we're offered, negotiation is more than just a conversation, working with the other side to get to an outcome that works for both sides, having a discussion, resolving a dispute. What does that actually mean, resolving a dispute? What is it you're actually doing to do that? And I think one of the most critical aspects of negotiating more effectively is to understand what it means. Because most of the people who I've met, who either in consulting or on our program, they'll say, well, we're going to do a negotiation. But then when they negotiate, they don't actually negotiate. Typically, most people will problem solve, which is a different skill.
Right.
And so much opportunity. And this is a great skill, don't get me wrong. Problem solving is terrific. It works really, really well if both sides have a shared view of what the problem is. And when that's the case, terrific. Look at the underlying drivers for both sides and figure out a scenario, figure out a solution. And our view of what negotiation is in the Western context has been shaped by the Harvard negotiation approach. Getting to yes has been a bestseller for the last 30-odd years. And this approach of principled negotiation, which is, what's in any university you go to, that's what you're taught. Most of the negotiation skills programs that you can go on, that's what you're taught, principled negotiation, is actually a process of cooperative problem solving. Let me tell you a story, because the example that's often used to illustrate this is, you would have heard the story of the orange. Are you familiar with this? The idea, on many programs people use this. This idea is that, two children are fighting over who can have the last orange.
All right.
And the parent comes in to sort of say, well, to sort this out, and said, I want the orange. No, I want the orange. And the teaching there is, of course, understand the underlying interest. What do you want the orange for? And one child wants to drink some orange juice, and the other child wants the rind to grind into zest because they want to bake a cake. Right. And so magically there is a wonderful solution to this. One gets the rind to make cake, the other gets to eat the orange or make the orange juice. And that's problem solving. But of course, in my house, and I suspect in most people's homes, both kids want the orange juice and nobody wants to bake a cake. So what do you do then?
Right.
And that's where problem solving finishes, because when the interests don't neatly separate into, oh, that's interesting, so we can do that, and problem solving, commercially, the fact that you want a low price and I want a high price, there's conflict there. Mm. There's not a problem to be solved. There's still a conflict resolution. So problem solving is not going to help you.
Yeah.
But most people are taught problem solving as a negotiation as the negotiation technique. And that's probably my biggest, the first wake-up call, if you like, that I'd like people to come away with. Problem solving is great, but when that doesn't work, you need another approach. So we did a study in 2016 with the Procurement Association, where we actually measured, we had over 300 participants in this study. And the study was all about, this had procurement negotiators, also some sales negotiators, all across senior management, junior management. And the question was, what techniques do they use? There are 9 fundamentally different techniques to resolve conflict. Negotiation is one of them. And 52% were problem solvers. And the interesting part is when that doesn't work, when for some reason problem solving doesn't work and they get stuck, what happens then? 43% of those who get stuck will then compromise. Half and half will split the difference. What does that mean? Well, both sides lose a little value. Not a great outcome in my book. 25% will switch to imposing their will. So it's like, all right, if that doesn't work, my way or the highway. And they may get away with that, but it damages the relationship, might even endanger the deal. Maybe there's no deal as a result of that. 9% will give in and just go, yeah, whatever. And again, even as a fallback, negotiation wasn't the preferred choice. Fewer than 10% of participants would naturally negotiate. Now, what does it mean? What do I mean when I talk about negotiating? Negotiation is trading. It's where you explicitly exchange something for something else. Mm. It's a different technique to persuading or compromising or imposing your will or just letting it slide and giving in or kicking it upstairs to the boss. It's a very different technique. Mm. So the first thing I would suggest to those who are on a leadership journey and who want to raise their game is to be aware of how they play, the techniques they use to resolve conflict, to, when the chips are down and there's a challenge. What is it you naturally do? And to be aware that maybe there are some different techniques if that doesn't work. And negotiation is just one of them, not better or worse, just more suited to some environments and less suited to others, just like all the other techniques.
Excellent, Matt. I think we should unpack that a little bit deeper. And
yeah.
I'm with you 100% in terms of what you're talking about here. Let's break that down and discuss the differences between compromise and negotiation. So in any negotiation, you need to go in with more than one variable. You need to go in and you need to understand what are your must-haves? What are the things that you cannot give up? You're not allowed to give up. It's the things that are most important to you and your organization if you're negotiating on behalf of an organization. But equally, what are your list of possible concessions? What are those things that you are willing to give up? And you need to start valuing these things and go, well, on my list of possible concessions, is there anything there that might be really important to the other party? So it comes back to empathy. But now we're in a complex relationship, but we've got more than one variable on the table and we can unblock a block situation. whereas compromise is just moving left and right on a continuum, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's if I had $1 for every time a client said to me, Matt, this is a tricky one. There's really only one thing that we need to negotiate, and it's price. I'd be a rich man. I wouldn't have to work. It is
always something.
Never about just one thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It is never just about one thing. Even the most simple transaction is about price and what is it you're getting and quality and value and how much you get. It's never just about one thing. And the skill of the good negotiator is to be aware of all the different bargaining chips that you have available. What is it that you want from the other side? What is it the other side wants from you that you may be prepared to give or maybe not prepared to give? What else could you ask for? How else could you enrich the deal, both for yourself and, importantly, also for the other side? What else could you offer the other side that they might value, as you said? In my previous life, in pharmaceutical licensing, we're on the sales side. Funky new technology, often on behalf of a small biotech company, looking to place a piece of technology with a larger pharma partner. Of course, price is important, but one of the things that was always on my list was a press release. A press release of, the pharma company announcing or agreeing that we would announce having done a deal. Doesn't cost the pharma company much. It's a bit of an embuggerance, really, for them to, approve it, and they've got shareholders and, all those sort of things. But it's really important for a small biotech because we'll be going out for some more fundraising, and to be able to announce that we've done a deal with, a global pharma company is huge. So those sort of trading variables, something that's low cost to one side and high value to you, is tremendous.
And you need to know all of those variables when you go in. Yeah. And if you don't know them, you need to ask the right questions to find out what they are, to find out what is important to the other party. Otherwise, you don't really know where to maneuver.
Yeah. Most of our time in consulting is spent in preparation.
Yes.
Understanding, finding more variables. What else could we offer the other side? Typically, what we find is that, people tend to prepare for resistance. Here's my ideal, and then I'll think about a fallback. The moment I hear that language, I've got this is what we really want, and then I have a fallback, I know that the preparation is all about resistance.
Right.
All about, let's kind of, concede as little as we can and hopefully end up with a good deal. What I always like to encourage is to prepare for flexibility. It's not about how much are we prepared to lose. It's about how rich can we make this deal. And the richer the deal for the other side, the more you can ask back in return for the value that you're providing to the other side. It's a totally different way of looking at a transaction, at a negotiation, but so much more powerful.
And it comes back to that word you used before, or we used before, which is the empathy. You really need to take the time to understand the other party's perspective, and then you're going to be able to get somewhere.
Yeah. And it's not in a sort of soft and, fluffy kind of way. It's kind of it's critical. Absolutely critical.
One of the things that's quite often misunderstood, and you'll even see people out there on LinkedIn or other social media giving people advice about negotiation. One that's quite often misunderstood. Should you be the first to speak or the last to speak, Matt?
I love just like medics love patients who come in having looked up their illness on Google and know more than than the medic coming in. I love it when participants ask or clients ask about, I read this on Google about how we should sit at the table, or should we mix it up? Should we not? Should we speak first? No, we should always. Fascinating. And often it's my advice is counter to, perceived wisdom. If you understand what it is you want and you've had a good exchange with the other side, get on the front foot and make a proposal. Why not? Because if you leave the other side to make the first proposal, it's going to be a lot less likely that it hits the spot for you, right? It's a concept we call anchoring. It's fairly straightforward. And And when you think about what happens in commerce and in marketing, in sales, that's what works. You never go into a shop and to have to ask the sales assistant, tell me what's the price of this? Can I make you a price? No, that's the sticker is right there. Every car yard, the sticker is right on the front of the car. Yes, they're anchoring the price. They're telling you what it is they want. You're going to be better off making the first proposal than asking for the first proposal. There are a couple of exceptions to that rule, but typically you're going to be better off having the courage to make the first proposal rather than asking for it.
So for our audience at home, I'm going to try and paint a bit of a picture for you here to explain what Matt is talking about with anchoring. And this time I will talk about a continuum. So we're only talking about a single variable this time, but bear with us. And we already have covered that negotiation is always multivariable. But when you're talking about that first variable that you're putting on the table, by speaking first, what you need to have done is done your homework to make sure that your anchor is on the playing field. If it's not on the playing field, it kills the conversation. But if that anchor is on the playing field, it's then going to be the pivot point around which the negotiation is going to yo-yo or slide. And Matt, you're far more of an expert than me, but everything that I've seen from all of your teachings and everything I've implemented since has shown me that the negotiation always gravitates somehow to that first anchor. And whoever gets that first anchor out there, it's going to be within a percentage of that anchor at the end and not slide all the way to the other end of the continuum. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there are exceptions, of course, sometimes, and sometimes, situations change. But absolutely, on balance, that is spot on. That's another piece of that Google wisdom. Aim high. You should always ask for a lot more. The first proposal should always have shock value. Those you can read those kind of bits of advice. As a professional negotiator, I can tell you that that's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. The only conceivable situation where that makes sense is if you're dealing with somebody who has no idea of what a good price would be. Right? Somebody who's just, who's an idiot, basically. Doesn't know the market, doesn't care, has more money than they know what to do with, and will just throw it at the first number that you give them. Under those circumstances, maybe I'll grant you. That's not the circumstance that most people find themselves in. They will negotiate with people who are perfectly aware what a fair price would be. What a reasonable price would be. And so opening with a shock proposal just results in people turning around going, I'm not going to negotiate with these people. They don't know what they're doing.
Kills it before it starts. Yeah, it's got to be on the playing field.
Or even if they stay at the table, it's going to take a long time to get to a place where a deal can actually be done. And time has money. So, again, Dr. Google is not always to be trusted.
So in summary, and yes, there will always be exceptions, but do your homework. Make sure that first anchor is on the playing field. So it's not going to be that shock value that Matt's talking about that kills the conversation, but is closer to where you want to be than otherwise. So getting that first anchor out there.
A reasonable, realistic proposal, absolutely. And if you find that there is, there's an opportunity to add some more value, terrific. You've prepared for that. There are some other variables that you might be able to work into the deal.
Excellent.
I never go into a shop with just my regular shopping list. Do a hardware store or whatever. There's always things that or electrical store or whatever. There are always things that might come in handy. When you're buying a television, what else do you need? You need cabling. You might need a USB stick for the, some other little bits and pieces. And so, those are always things that you can often work into a deal. My wife always accuses me of maybe enjoying it a little bit too much, but
fair enough. All right, very good, Matt. Now, leaders don't always end up in commercial negotiations like we're talking about. It could be something to do with human resources. It could be conflict in the workplace. What other types of negotiation do you think that leaders find themselves into on a regular basis?
They'd be negotiating on a regular basis with their team, with their managers, of course. And it's, those negotiations are not always about dollars. They're often about performance. They're about priorities. They're about time. We talk a lot about negotiating in business, but like I said at the beginning, it's not a business skill, it's a life skill. So we have those same negotiations with our team at home, with the kids about computer time and whether they can take the car in the evening to go to a party. And, all those things they're all opportunities to negotiate, and to negotiate so that both sides end up with a better outcome, because that's what negotiation is all about. Most people think about negotiation as, here's my opportunity to rip the other side off and take the last dollar off the table. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's really about making sure both sides get a good outcome.
The priorities one is an excellent one to unpack for a leader. So let's talk about that. Here's a little bit of advice for leaders. This takes a while for people to maybe learn this one, but if everything is your highest priority, it means that everything is your lowest priority. So you do need to understand the variables in your business. You need to be able to rank things, and you need to be able to give your teams the guidance to be able to prioritize their time. Now, in terms of trading and negotiating now and the multi-variables, let's talk about a hypothetical. Let's say that you need your team to work late tonight because there's a big deadline coming up, and we're trading off what needs to be worked on and making sure that that milestone is met. But you need to understand what's important to your team, and what is it that you can give them that might sweeten the deal. Can you give them next Monday off, which is really important to them because of something that's happening at their kid's school? Or you really need to be able to understand what those factors might be.
Yeah. As we were alluding to earlier in the conversation, you have a choice. You might be able to impose your will and just tell them to work harder and stay late. That might get the job done, but there'll be repercussions down the road. Maybe you can negotiate. What can you offer the team in return that'll have them happily do the overtime? Both sides. Yeah, you might compromise. You might give in and say, and let the deadline slide. Lots of different ways in which you approach that. No one right or wrong. It just depends. It depends on what it is you're looking to achieve. It depends on the kind of relationship you have with your team. Assuming you're having a longer-term relationship. So imposing your will might not be the best approach. If you're negotiating in the context where there is no long-term relationship and it doesn't really matter, you might choose to impose your will because it's very efficient. If you have the power and you can just tell people to jump and do something. I had to impose my will the other week on my, landscaping contractor who was, kept letting me down. And I said, look, I put a line in the sand because I needed to. And I don't care whether he likes me afterwards as long as he gets the job done.
There is a time and a place, of course, for
Absolutely.
that. And you got to pick your moments. Yeah.
And part of the skill is to choose your approach and not just do, what you normally do. That's part of that nuanced approach as a leader.
Great advice. I feel like we're at the risk because, we know each other so well and we both love this topic that if we let this go, we'll still be talking in 4 or 5 hours' time and all of the audience would have switched off by then. So I'm going to bring us to a close. And there's a question that I ask all of our guests. And that is if you did wind the clock back, and it might be 16 years ago, it might be further back, but when you're a young person really trying to make your mark on the world, you might be fresh out of university, 2 or 3 years out. What's the advice that you would have given to a young Matt, something that you know now that you wish you knew back then?
As a scientist, I guess my focus back in the day was really on the acquisition of knowledge. You go to university and learn things, and you cram your head full of new things that you know, and you do MBAs, and they teach you about all sorts of things. I think the world has changed now because knowledge is cheap. Everybody has the ability to know pretty much everything because information is now so widely available that it's really difficult now to stand out knowing more than somebody else. What's really important these days is skill. It's actually the ability to execute, to do things in a way that others can't. It's no longer about what you know. It's about who you know and how well you can engage with others, how well you can motivate others, how well you speak and present, how well you communicate, whether you can engage and get others to do things, either through motivation or through negotiation, whether you can cut deals, whether you can come to agreements with others that they will uphold and deliver on. Because in the end, that's what we're all doing, not just in the commercial sense. It's, engaging with others to work together as a family, as a team, as a business. And knowledge, bizarrely, is becoming less and less important because it's much more widely available. And what really counts is skill.
Yep.
So find opportunities to develop your skill. Challenge your leaders to give you opportunities to develop your skills, some real skills, rather than just knowledge.
In my view, you picked on two things there. Instead of knowledge, you spoke about what I would say is applied knowledge. So not just knowing something, but knowing what to do with it and how to put that into action. That's really key. And all of the other things that you spoke about in one way or another, and I'm going to be careful here because it's a term that can be controversial, but soft skills. And Simon Sinek, he's recently been saying this a lot, saying they should not be called soft skills because they're really hard. So people are far more complex than the rules of physics, for example. You can calculate the rules of physics. An emotional reaction from someone, humans are far more complex than that. And that's one of the things that all leaders need to understand pretty quickly is that emotional intelligence, and I will use the term again for now, and Simon will hate me, but soft skills are the key, but they're really hard.
I don't use the term soft skills. I call them core skills.
That's
they
even
are
better.
Core skills.
Yeah.
Because without those core skills, none of the hard skills will be any good.
There we go.
You require the core skills in order to execute the hard skills.
I think we should write to Simon and tell him that. I think he should steal that one because he's been on this bandwagon a lot lately saying, stop calling them soft skills. And I agree with him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And finally, Matt, thank you so much for joining us. I want to give you the floor now to talk about your business and to tell our audience, I should say, more about what you do.
Well, it's very simple, really. We are a one-trick pony. There's only one thing we do. We're an expert team of negotiation professionals, essentially, and we work in Australia and overseas, and we focus on negotiation. That breaks down into four things. We negotiate agreements on behalf of clients, actually sitting at the table, leading negotiations or supporting the negotiation team. We help our clients prepare for the negotiations, so develop strategy, tactics. We pressure test preparation, run war games, make sure that their team is on their A game before they go in. We diagnose skills gaps. So we have some diagnostics. We do interviews to identify negotiation capability and see where there might be some gaps, and we teach. So we coach individuals, teams in professional negotiation skills, and I guess that's how we first met Mick on the program, so that they can go on to deliver superior results for their clients, for their organizations. So those are the four things we do, and we do this, like I said, around the globe. Travel has obviously been a bit more restricted over the last year or so, but we're looking forward to that picking up again in 2021.
Thank you so much, Matt. And once again, to the audience, I've been the first-hand recipient of everything that Matt just said, and I've got to tell you, it works. It works a charm. It's changed my life, and I know a lot of people use that statement a lot, but in this case, it's 100%. It changed my life in terms of the way that I go about my negotiation in everyday life and in business. And when I did 3 specific workshops that Matt was talking about, preparing for multi-million-dollar negotiations, we won every single one of those contracts. Now, what I mean by that, we didn't win the negotiation. There's no such thing. We won the contract, we secured the contract, and we beat the competition because we were able to give greater value to our customer and to trade and negotiate the best deal. So it works is the best thing I can say you, and I encourage you all, if you need those services, please get in contact with Matt and Negotiation Partners. I couldn't give them a higher recommendation in terms of what they can do for you.
Really appreciate that, Mick. And just to underscore that negotiation and selling is a very different discipline. I'm a terrible salesperson. I'm a pretty good negotiator. So www.negotiation.partners is where you find us. There you go. I should have said that right at the beginning.
Thank you so much, Matt. And of course, it was so great to see you on the screen here on Zoom and to talk to you again. And I look forward to talking to you again very soon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Mick.
You've been listening to The Leadership Project with your host, Mick Spears. We really hope you enjoyed this great episode with Matt Lohmeyer. Once again, if you'd like to get in contact with Negotiation Partners, we've included their contact details in the show notes. We hope that you're enjoying the show. If you are, please remember to hit subscribe on your preferred podcast service so that you are reminded of all of our future episodes. And why not tell a friend? They might get some value out of it as well. We look forward to bringing you some more great content shortly. In the meantime, please do stay safe and always remember to challenge the status quo.